Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures Podcast. This is episode 331. I am your host, Sean Hayes, and I'm here to bring you the latest and greatest gaming news of the past week. So, hope everyone's had a great week. For the Lorcana fans out there, finally got a chance to play Palace Heist last night with some folks from my local league. And boy, oh boy, is that game hard. And having more players doesn't necessarily make the game easier. So for those who don't know, if you really don't know about Lorcana, so Lorcana is a Disney TCG by Ravensburger. And in the latest set, they introduced its second sort of co-op spinoff, where there's like a challenge deck, kind of similar to sort of like the raid deck idea from the WoW TCG, where you and other players, or you can play yourself, are playing cooperatively against an NPC deck. And there's like certain rules for how to run that deck. But they are notoriously difficult. And like if you're running the precons that come included in it, it's made all the more difficult because they're precons, and Lorcana precons are not at the level that like Magic precons are, like Commander precons certainly, where they're actually really good. So yeah, but it was tough. It was tough. And even with 3 of us using our own decks, we still like just barely squeaked out a win on our second game. First game, I was the only person out of 5 playing a deck that I brought. And we were absolutely destroyed. But yeah, so it's hard. And we were playing on easy mode. But my observation was like, it seems like it's kind of like Sentinels of the Multiverse, where there is a sweet spot for a number of players. Like for Sentinels, like the sweet spot, I think, is 3 players. Whereas with this, I feel like the sweet spot might be 2. Because it gives you, like, it's where you have more options, but it's not coming at the expense of more powerful stuff. So like in Sentinels, a lot of villain abilities are based on number of players. And so like adding extra players like can give you more turns, but it also means that it is essential. Like if you go from 3 players to 5 players, it means that those abilities are 50% more effective. And that's usually pretty rough. So like the question is whether the 2 extra players are enough to overcome that hurdle. And in Lorcana, it's the number of cards that like Jafar gets to draw, or in Palace Heist, the number of cards that Jafar gets to draw is directly correlated to the number of players. And when he uses some sort of like ability that hits everything or makes everybody choose something, it becomes obviously more effective with the number of opponents that he has. So, but yeah, it was super fun. It was hard, man. It was real hard. So, aside from that, I've been continuing to play Xenoblade Chronicles X. My birthday was this week, so I got an eShop card for my birthday. I picked up Sunderfolk, and I finally got Outtro, so I'll get to see what that's all about. I'm really excited. I've heard a lot of great stuff about that game. So I'm very excited to check it out. But for now, I'm like 200 hours into Xenoblade, and I still have the epilogue to go. I've still got a bunch of post-game stuff. My goal is to 100% the game. So I've still got a ton to do. Mostly I've been doing like the online like raid battles. So fighting like Telethia Plume and Igralith Zero. Since I have an end game build now. So I'm able to do that stuff. But why don't we get into this week's news? Got some exciting stuff. And our big topic for the day will be so I finally picked up a copy of Daggerheart. And because I didn't do any of the playtesting or the beta at all. So I was, especially in wake of the news of last week's news, was very excited to pick up a copy and kind of check it out. So let's get into the news, shall we? So first up, I was not expecting this at all. Which if I don't know if maybe I just missed an announcement or something, but Wizards of the Coast has announced a Sonic the Hedgehog secret lair drop. So yeah. And I'm sure everybody that hates Universes Beyond is screeching about this, I'm sure. The one thing I will say is that it kind of continues the tradition of printing cards that don't yet have universes within versions of them. So like all of the named characters will be unique. And also like, and it's one thing if like they're like decent but not busted. Like if they're not like absolute must-haves, like in terms of power level. However, there's a super state card that's in the secret lair. That's a colorless legendary aura. That is absolutely bananas if you can cheat it out, or just play green because it costs 7. But it makes the enchanted creatures base power and toughness 9/9, and it gives it flying, first strike, trample, and haste. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you then deal the same amount of damage to each other opponent. So yeah, it's, and I think like it would be like absurd enough on its own, but the fact that that came out just after Jumbo Cactuar came out in the Final Fantasy set, it feels a bit gross, especially if it's going to be a secret lair drop. So it's like, I don't mind Universes Beyond. What I do mind are what are likely going to be limited run secret lairs, and then you're not going to be able to get that card again. Because I don't know, who knows how long it'll take for the Universes Within versions to come out. I mean, my hope is maybe it's in the next set, in the spaceship set. But yeah. So some of the cards included are Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy Rose, Shadow. There is Egg Hammer, which is a reprint of Mirror Battlesphere. There's an Egg token that's a mirror token. There's a ring that functions as a treasure token. Soul Ring. So Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves both got versions of like Sonic and Shadow sneakers, respectively. Let's see what else was in there. So Amy's hammer is in there as a reprint of something. Sonic's biplane is in there as a reprint of Weatherlight. And then, of course, Super State. So yeah. So Knuckles has like double strike. Double strike and trample? I think, or something like that. He definitely has double strike, but I can't remember what his other one is. And like whenever one of your other creatures dies, like you get a treasure token. And then if you have, or maybe it's deals, or one or more deals combat damage, you get a treasure token. But if you have 30 or more artifacts, you win the game. So it's one of those. And mono red. So, just go burr and churn out treasure tokens and win. Like, at least granted, Revel in Riches, like, requires treasures, but it only requires, like, 10. But it feels like in red, getting 30 artifacts is not that big of a deal. So, sure. Great. So yeah, that's coming. But yeah, I guess it's so. Admittedly, I'm a little bummed because like I don't have the money for secret lairs anymore. And then, or really any magic cards anymore. Especially since like I'm trying to focus on Lorcana. But yeah, it's one of those things where for kitchen table magic, like I'll just proxy it. But yeah. So good news for Magic and Sonic fans, which I feel like there's probably a pretty big crossover of that. So at least like, I don't know. I'm sure there's still, the MTG purists who are griping about it. But I don't know. What are you gonna do? We are well onto the universes beyond train at this point. So, yeah, at least these, I think it's not standard legal at the very least. So if you care about that, then I guess it's a win for you. But yeah. So I'm also curious to see like if it'll be a premium secret lair or like the regular ones where you could get everything for like $30. Which I don't know. Might be worth it because, Sonic is popular. So all right. Let's move on. IGN reports that the upcoming title Resident Evil Requiem will finally return to Raccoon City and what Umbrella's been up to. It'll have a new protagonist. And it sounds like they are not focusing on Leon, because they feel like Leon is more of an action hero and they wanted to return it more to a horror style genre. So like this character will visibly recoil from frightening moments and stuff. But they also mentioned that there will be like more action oriented scenes. So there is speculation that, Leon might be in control for those. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Raccoon City and Umbrella Corp are, to me, intrinsic to the series. And like, it's interesting when they veer off and do other stuff, but like, I'm glad to see them like bring it all back to where the series started. And I mean, because like, I can't remember the last time the series has been in Raccoon City. But at least like, it's weird that like we're only 2 games out from 7 where we last dealt with Umbrella, but that was almost 10 years ago. So yeah. So it's one of those where I won't play it because I'm a wuss and I can't play Resident Evil. But I will watch it. Like I'll gladly watch streams of other people playing it. But like, God, just thinking about like 7, like even watching like the first, well, like if you're going slowly, like the first hour of gameplay, or essentially like the intro, like even just watching it gave me such anxiety, and I'm like, I can't. There was no way I could play this game. So, but But yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with the series, so seeing Raccoon City come back is cool. Next up, Game Informer reports that Super Mario Strikers is coming to Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack July 3rd. So it is the next title coming. It was announced previously that this was one of the titles coming soon. But yeah, this game was great. I don't tend to play sports games. And this one was awesome. So very excited to see this be available online. So yeah, that'll be fun. And July 3rd, so next week is when it's coming. It's also the GameCube offerings are currently a little anemic, so this will definitely add some bulk to its offerings, because right now it's kind of thriving on Wind Waker. So very excited for this. Blizzard announced so there's going to be a Diablo crossover again for the month of July. There'll be 2 events, one of which will be a return of I forget, something with greed, where treasure goblins are going to appear. Not loot goblins, treasure goblins. And portals will spawn, and you'll be able to do all sorts of cool stuff with that. But also, Collector's Bounty is coming back. And so pre-Cataclysm rare mounts, rare drop mounts, will have their drop rates increased by tenfold for the month of July. So this means that if a mount had a drop rate of 0.1%, it'll be increased to 1%. If it had a drop rate of 1%, it'll go up to 10%. And so this will be the time to, if you've been trying for 10 years, 15 years, 17 years, to get, Invincible, Ashes of Alar, stuff like that. Now's your chance. I've seen some discourse of people griping about it, and it's if you've been grinding it every week for 15 years and it has yet to drop, you suddenly getting it when the drop rate was increased does not diminish, the work put in. And let's be real. There is no work that's being put in to try and farm Invincible in 2025. When you're level 80, you're steamrolling your way through the end anyway. So let's not pretend that I had to grind to do that. No. It's taking you 20 minutes to clear the entirety of the raid, since you just one-shot everything in there. Come on. It's tedium is what it is. Okay? Grinding it would have been the achievement, which is what they do, would have been getting it back during the relevant expansion. Okay? Saying that I ground for, 15 years and I didn't get it, and now they're going to increase it, and if I get it, I'm going to be, disappointed, and I'll feel like it's cheapened. No, dude, you put in the work. How about take it as you are finally being rewarded for it? So, yeah, this actually, okay, I was going to take a break because I've heard that the latest content patch isn't great. Something like Legacy of Arathor isn't great. Hasn't been enough to pull me back from Xenoblade in particular. But I mean, rare mounts possibly being achievable now might do it. So congrats, Blizzard. Because also they're doing a Summerween thing for the trading post, where it's all Forsaken themed. So I was just I'll skip it this month. But then also I realized I could just get my Trader's Tender. So But yeah. So, and again, pre-Cataclysm. Okay, so this is classic or vanilla, if you prefer. Yeah, which is so vanilla, Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King. So those mounts specifically will have their drop rates increased. Okay, so there we go. Finally, our big topic for today. So Daggerheart. Let's talk about Daggerheart. So I was finally able to pick up a copy from my local game store. Again, like I was kind of like, it seems interesting, but like, I'll wait. I've got other things on my docket, so maybe I'll put it off. I'm not super intrigued. And then like the news broke of Perkins and Crawford going to Darrington Press, and so I'm like, okay, maybe it is worth a look at then. And like I was already aware that they were doing some interesting things with this, but after then like taking a deeper look at the handbook, like I'm really intrigued. So it's one of those things where I'm gonna have to try and play it at some point. I fear that I may have to run it because that's how it goes as a forever DM. Which I would much rather play to get a sense for it. But this game is doing some really interesting things. And that's, between you and me, folks, that is mostly why I pick up TTRPG books, is to get game design ideas and then like steal them for my own for my own stuff. So let's just do a couple of things. So number one, 2d12 system. This I found super funny because one of my very close friends and one of my players in my games actually, way back when, was trying, like, really likes D12s and was trying to come up with something that uses D12s because nobody does. So I mentioned that, all in. I was like, yeah, it's a 2d12 system. And he was just like, done, solid, in, locked in. So one of those is your hope die, and one of those is your fear die, and you roll them, and like you're looking to beat a target number, but the higher of the numbers, so the higher of the dice, determines whether you're rolling with hope, if the hope die is higher, or rolling with fear. And if you roll with hope, the big thing is that like you generate one hope, which is like a token that you get. It's a resource. You can spend it to power like super powerful abilities, or you can do like certain actions with it. Or if you end up rolling with fear, and also you get that benefit even if you fail. So this is where like failure has consequences, but you still get something for it. Which is kind of a trend that like more narrative games are running with these days. This game, by the way, very narrative. So it's definitely not the level of crunch that, like, very far below the level of crunch like for D&D and Pathfinder. But it is, in my opinion, certainly crunchier than a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games. And I think like it definitely leans more into that realm. But I think it still kind of fits in the middle. If you're looking for something in between like D&D and say Dungeon World, Daggerheart is like a great middle ground between the two of them. Because it keeps a lot of the narrative focus that Powered by the Apocalypse games have. But it still tries to capture a lot of the thought processes from D&D. And by extension, Pathfinder and similar games. So, but when you roll with fear, even if you succeed, what happens is the game master gets a fear token, which they use to take. So number one, to let like adversaries do stuff, but also to do like environmental things and everything. So the fear token is to create complications for the players. Now, like 7th Sea does something similar to this, which is like a great little system. Just that specific mechanic in and of itself is great. I really like it. So it's like a back and forth. With using fear, and this way it creates like every role that you do like is gonna do something interesting, and like something particularly interesting, not just like it's interesting if you succeed, or you know, in the cases of like you get less useful information, but really seems to just keep driving everything forward, like even with failure, which is a common criticism of Dungeons and Dragons, where it's like a binary success fail, and if you fail, then it's up to you to figure out alternate routes to move something forward, as opposed to being baked into that role. Something else I think the game does really interesting is hit points and armor. So in D&D, and I'm going to give comparisons to D&D and stuff because D&D is the most popular TTRPG, so it's usually the standard that everything gets compared against. But it also serves as, you know, it serves as a point that like most people are familiar with. So in D&D, armor just gives you a number to hit. So it's either like if you're a player, you're trying to hit that number. So if you're attacking, you're trying to hit that number, and if you're being attacked, it's the number that you want to make sure is high enough that things don't hit you. But otherwise, like it's again binary success fail, and then if you're hit, you take damage, and the damage subtracts from your hit points. So the way Daggerheart handles this, and I really like this mechanic, and I'm my plan is to pitch it to my players if we want to completely redo how hit points and armor are done in the system that we're playing with my own custom system that we're playing right now. Armor, like essentially has its own health pool, and also provides you with damage thresholds. So when you take damage in Daggerheart, it doesn't directly go to your hit points. You have hit points that are more similar to like a health tracker in like 7th Sea or like White Wolf games, as opposed to like this massive pool, or what starts as a small pool and becomes like a massive pool of hit points. So when you take damage, the damage is then compared to your damage thresholds. And if it's under the first number, it's a like minor wound. And then you lose 1 hit point. If it's greater than or equal to the second number, but less than the first number, but less than the second number. So like you might have a damage threshold of 5/10. Okay. So if you take 4 or less damage, you take a minor wound and you lose 1 hit point. If you take 5 to 9 damage, you get a moderate wound and you lose 2 hit points. And then if you take 10 or more, it's a severe wound and you would lose 3 hit points. And like your hit points might be like your starting hit points might be like 6. So it still incentivizes you to not get hit, which is referenced from like your evasion score. But obviously, better armor will give you better damage thresholds. So it means that like the range, like it makes it more likely that you will be taking minor or moderate wounds. What the armor's health pool does is you can mark off one of those hit points on your armor, which are called armor slots, and you can reduce the severity of the hit that you take by 1 step. Okay, so essentially you reduce the number of hit points you lose by 1. I think this is super cool. It reminds me a bunch of like Star Wars Saga Edition, where you had vitality points and hit points. And it was just, it was in a typical D20 game type thing where like when you took damage, it actually reduced your hit points, but like critical hits would reduce your vitality points. And at some point, like you would also take damage to your vitality points. And it was, if your vitality points ran out, like you were dead. If your hit points, ran out, like you could convert some of your vitality points, blah, blah, blah. But it essentially felt like an extra hit point pool. Whereas this feels like more of how like armor works. Like I've come to not really like the armor just provides a number that you get hit, but it doesn't provide any sort of damage reduction. Like it treats it as armor as total evasion. So it's either you completely negate a hit or you are treated as if you weren't wearing armor at all. And I got around it by armor provides damage reduction. But this in a way, like I like it because you don't have to deal with like subtracting numbers all the time. And it still allows like to do glancing blows and stuff like that. So yeah, there's also stress, which it's basically treated as like another separate health pool, but things will deal stress, or you can gain stress in order to use certain abilities. The big difference is if you run out of, or if you mark all of your stress, you're then vulnerable and everything has advantage to target you, basically. So anything targeting you has advantage. And if you have to take on any more stress when you have no boxes left, you instead then you instead lose hit points. So I think all of that, super interesting, super great. It also means that you're dealing with like much lower damage totals because you don't have to roll buckets of dice. And like people love rolling buckets of dice. People don't love adding up buckets of dice. And having run an after school game, the less dice that you need to roll at a given time, the better. Because it slows everything down so much. And especially if you have people who are weaker at math, that have trouble with like doing calculations on the fly. Instead, if it's having like a wildly ranged roll. So like there are times when you roll a d20 and add a number, and that's the damage that you deal. I think that's like it's way less consistent, but it involves less math than rolling 3d6 and adding a number. Because then that's essentially 4 numbers that you have to. That's twice as many numbers that you have to add. Which again, for a lot of folks, that's not a problem. But it does, essentially not having to do as much calculation on the fly does make the game more accessible. I also think the domain system's pretty interesting. So every class has 2 domains, and that gives you access to a pool of cards that you choose a bunch. So it's essentially kind of treats everybody like wizards a little bit in that you essentially pick cards from your domains for your loadout, and then that's like your abilities until you swap cards out. Some of them might be passive effects, some of them might be active effects, some of them might require you to spend hope, some of them might require you to mark stress. And generally speaking, like for one card, it's like one ability. And so that also helps like cut down on the number of like ability bloat there is. That is one of my pet peeves with spellcasters in D&D in particular is like, geez, by 20th level, you're preparing like 30 abilities, like 30 spells that you have to keep track of. And many of them are redundant. So, yeah, I would, and this is one of the things that I've been trying to correct with my custom homebrew system, is like cutting down on the number of spells in particular, and doing more like that. You would, to get like less spells to keep track of, but each one is more flexible. Part that I'm still trying to figure out is the fine line of like, because we're trying to have it still be a tactical game, of having it so that it's way more flexible, but also not requiring like paragraphs of rules text in order to accommodate that. But this is narrative, so it's intended like, it's like until the end of the scene, you can crawl on walls and ceilings. And stuff like that. So like it's kind of refreshing for it to be like Mage Hand. It's just you conjure a hand at far range. It uses it has like your level of strength. And like that's it. Like it doesn't get into like, oh, it takes an action to move it and do something. And you have to maintain concentration on it or whatever. It's like, no, you conjure a hand and it can do whatever your hand can do. So I think is that maybe, and especially like for my homebrew system, is maybe taking some inspiration from that and being like, maybe I don't need to lay everything out like a very clear-cut rules doc, especially if it's just going to be a game that's played by my group. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Okay, let's talk about it and then figure it out. And then if it needs clarification, then add a clarification in the text or whatever. But to try and be a bit looser with stuff. So yeah, as far as the book design, the book's gorgeous. The cards are really nice. Cards are nicely done and pretty high quality. And they do reminder cards for like everything. So there's cards for your ancestry. There's cards for your community. There's cards for your class, your subclass, your domain cards. So it's to help you just have reminders of things in front of you so that you don't need to keep going back to the book, which I appreciate. It's something that I was doing, again, for my after school game using 5th edition, was like giving them ability cards so that they had it in front of them. Giving them magic item cards so that they, again, had a visual reminder in front of them of like what they had and what they were able to do. So yeah, suffice to say, I'm impressed. I am glad that I picked it up. Even if I never get to play, but to get exposure to more games and like how other games are designed and played. And I think that's something that like a lot of people need, is just expose yourself to more games, like especially indie games too. So like not just big budget things like Daggerheart and D&D, Pathfinder, and stuff like that. But like especially little indie projects. So yeah. Again, I need to see if it holds up to like the way I play and the way I run games. I know I personally struggle a bit with more narrative games because I like having, and I don't know if it's just like I feel like I struggle a bit and actually don't, since I have to make up so much stuff for D&D anyways on the fly. But like when I'm thinking about stuff, I prefer to have like rules and guidelines for things that I can just like reference and then internalize, as opposed to just coming up with like what makes a good story. But it just means like I really just want a chance to play it at some point. But yeah, I'm very intrigued. I'm super happy with it. I did just get the core set, which just comes with the book and essentially like a basic copy of all the cards. So I will say, as another comparison to D&D, character creation way easier, way faster. I was explaining to at our little game night last night, like my rubric and my standard is like to take one of my existing D&D characters. So like I know how long it takes to make that character. And like if I were to like make a copy of that character or have to rebuild that character from scratch, like I have a, like now that I know what I'm doing, and then it's just like making tweaks and everything, like I got a feel for how long it takes. So to recreate it in another system, like how much effort does it feel like, and how long does the process take, is for me a good guideline for other systems and like how easy character creation is. Especially going in not knowing the system and being like, okay, I'm just following the guidelines. What do I do here? What do I do here? What do I do here? Cool. Great. Let's go. So yeah. So very excited, very happy with my purchase. Looking to see more from it. I know they have like 4 more classes already planned. So that's exciting. And to just see what other stuff comes out for it. So that is going to wrap things up for this week. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. If you would like to see more content from 8-Bit Adventures, be sure to check out 8bitadventures.com. If you want to help support that content, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/8bitadventures. Big shout out and thank you to all of my current patrons for your continued support. It is through your continued support that I was able to do things like pick up Daggerheart to be able to talk about it. So thank you for that. Our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his stuff over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. And with that, we're finished. So we'll see you all next week. But until then, have fun, happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.